Hello, everyone. It's so good to see you. I am Carla Sanders, the Cosmic Crone, and I decided to come on and do a very concise, short Scorpio new moon reading because most of my energy is going into the eclipse ceremony this afternoon, where we will take everything that's here into a deeper journey. So I'll put the link for you to register for that. But I felt like it's important. We are in the eclipse window now, and Scorpio season being what it is, I wanted to introduce some of the great themes of this eclipse. Any new moon in Scorpio is opening the gate to the Scorpio issues to come up in your life and across the planet. What are the Scorpio issues? Scorpio is the realm where we deal with the shadows, the taboos, the things that are deeply sacred, that may feel forbidden, and that certainly have been forbidden and repressed, and had all kinds of layers of stuff piled on them because they have to do with personal power, personal autonomy, and sovereignty. So what are these areas? Sex, death, and money. Scorpio is 8th house energy, so wherever the 8th house might lie in your chart, it's bringing in that Scorpio energy, which has to do with the challenging aspects of relationship, of where we are uncomfortable with money, where we need to sometimes make tough decisions and be incredibly alert, aware, and well-boundaried around money, where we need to have a secure sense of our own value and worth so that we can walk unencumbered and in full power through these Scorpio issues. We can deal with money, which has so much shame associated with it. We can deal with sexuality, sex, pleasure, desire, and all of our shadows around that, because that information has been forbidden. The rules around it are so tight and precise, and almost everything we like, everything that feels good, has a taboo or a repression around it. And certainly our individual freedoms around our sexuality have been curtailed by religious and spiritual rules and false morality. And death. We do not want to face death. And very often we will use money and sex to avoid thinking about death, the reality of death. And of course, death involves the end of this life, this personality, this body, and often that end can include illness and violence and decrepitude and old age and losing ourselves as we know it before our body dies. And these are all things that are quite terrifying to us. But also death has to do with change. Dying to something old so that something new can be reborn and blossom. And this is a process of life that is natural, a cycle. The moon cycle each month represents that. The cycles of the seasons of growing and planting seeds and trees losing their leaves and fruit ripening. And, you know, this is life. So here we are in Scorpio season where the fruit, the harvest is complete in some ways, and the late harvest is beginning. And the late harvest is a metaphor for death, because the next thing that happens is the trees grow dormant here in the north, and the earth goes to sleep and begins to freeze. It gets cold. Here in the north, and I know it's on the opposite cycle in the south, you know, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, you know, the places on the other side of the world. But I have to speak from the part that I know, where I live, which is in the north. Oddly enough, our latitude is similar to Southern Europe, where it's warm. But our weather is, our world is in the frozen north here in Maine. So we are in the place where we're watching that fruit fall, and the plants are dying back, and the days are getting very short, and we're spending much more time in darkness and much more time indoors. That season is coming. Scorpio is when we feel the shift. And so we drop into internal. In fact, Scorpio carries the witch's new year, Samhain, where the veils are thin. The Catholics, the church, co-opted it into All Souls Day, where we honor the dead and we honor the saints. The older religions took this time of year, which is astronomical. You can find this time of year by measuring the movement of planets and the sun and the moon in relation to the earth. And so this is the time of honoring ancestors, honoring the dead, acknowledging that we are alive at this moment, and some of us will not make it to the springtime. And so we prepare ourselves. We don't know how it's going to play out. Well, right now, we have the new moon, and it's early in Scorpio. It's tomorrow morning. Where I live, it will be at sunrise, just right before sunrise. And this new moon is an eclipse, which is a big energetic portal. And I say big, it feels tight. It's very precise. And it has a lot of turbulence, and it whooshes with a lot of energy. So it's big, energetically big. And it feels very scary. And especially going into Scorpio, it's like, do we really need to be pushed by mountains of water through a portal into the Scorpio energy? Well, at this particular time, with the world the way it is, yeah, we need this. And that's why I'm doing a ritual today to support you in attuning to these dark goddess energies, because there's a lot going on in the chart, and I'm going to briefly describe it. We've got the sun and the moon at exact 2 degrees Scorpio. And Venus on Saturday night made her exact conjunction to the sun on the far side of the sun, which sent all of that Venus power in the shadow, because we cannot see her, but she is reaching us and amplifying her energy through the sun. And at the very moment of that conjunction, there was another planet at the same place, Haumea, the goddess. She's the grandmother goddess of the Polynesian people, including the Hawaiians, the grandmother of all of the Hawaiian gods, including the fire goddess Pele. And she represents vastly amplified creativity and fertility. So she is packing that energy of creation into this energy that drops into the shadows, into the underworld, into the forbidden realms of sex, death, and money. And this, my loves, is where our creativity is sourced. Creativity without roots in the darkness, roots in the soil. this creativity is nothing. It's entertainment. So in the ritual today, we will drop into the root and you will be able to feed yourself. And even that is just a glimpse, because once you've visited the root, you find that there's more work to do. Integrating and processing it is an initiation in itself. That's available too. So stay tuned for that. So this is a window onto what is happening in your life at this time of the year. The women who came to my in-person ritual yesterday, they were all in the midst of intense life initiation. And by dropping into this space, they were able to reframe what was going on in their lives and draw nourishment from it. And that is the purpose. The beauty of ritual is it lets us do our work without naming everything, without re-traumatizing. We can feel held in sacred space and just say, I am letting divine take care of this for me. It's a beautiful thing, and it is a great privilege that I have to hold space and to facilitate this for people. So those 3 planets at the very end of Libra, and then the Sun and Venus move on into Scorpio, where the moon, the quick-moving moon, catches up. And so what is happening what else is happening tomorrow morning? And in fact, it's happening now, because some of these aspects some of them are happening now and some of them will happen in the day after. So this energy is going to continue to unfold throughout this week. So what have we got? First, there is a triple conjunction emerging down in Capricorn. So we have water connecting in a close aspect, a singing of the chords, a harmonic aspect. And that those beings are Ixion, who represents the shadow. And it's not even the shadow, it is like underneath the shadow's shadow. The part that you find so unlovable and unacceptable that you want to avoid it. You will spend all your energy repressing it because it is so difficult to face. And good luck with that. I know, I tried to repress it for years. And now I realize, no, the way to heal that is to integrate it and to acknowledge it and to see it and to say, I see you, I love you, I accept you. So Ixion is there, and he happens to be on top of my personal North Node. So this is really personal work for me at this time. And he's with 2 other planets, Magdalena and Pholus. Mary Magdalene, the great teacher of Christ consciousness, divine love, considered the feminine consort of the Christ figure we know as Yeshua. And Pholus, the shaman of the centaurs, who got drunk and made a mistake and started a war. And he represents small cause, big effect. And we tend to associate that with disasters, although it can be just as easily associated with opportunity and great knowledge and healing, shift and transformation. And like I said before, we associate shift and transformation with dying, which is why as human beings we tend to have trouble with that. We tend to avoid it or hold it off rather than walk into it with eyes open, hearts open, and shielded with all of our spiritual support and power. So that emphasizes the scorpionic power and the healing potential, the knowledge and truth that will be unveiled when you dive into this Scorpio eclipse with your eyes open, full awareness, and not letting fear put the brakes on. You can't necessarily get rid of the fear. You don't really want to. It serves a purpose. But let fear be a teacher, a tool, a signpost for you. What else is going on? Back in Libra, Mercury and Psyche are busy. I sent my newsletter the Psyche story last week. When did that go out? It went out on Wednesday, I think. Psyche is a powerful story of the initiation, the arc of initiation for women at a certain phase of life. It's not the only initiation of women, but it represents the maiden to woman initiation. And Psyche has been active throughout the Libra moon cycle. She was conjunct the sun during the full moon, the Aries full moon. She was conjunct Venus at some point, I think at the new moon. And now, as the moon and sun have moved into Scorpio, Venus and Mercury, fresh off his retrograde, are merged. And so I see that as Mercury reaching into the Psyche myth, getting the message and bringing it out to us. What do we need to know? What does Psyche have to teach us? So if you want to know more about Psyche, and then sign up for my newsletter. I'll put that link in the comments here as well. So I will make sure that you get that most recent letter if you're a new subscriber. And if you already have my newsletter and you didn't read it or you didn't see it, check your spam and go and read up on it. It's incredibly valuable work, and there is a dark edge to it that I had not seen before until I looked at it in the light of this Scorpio eclipse energy. So it happens that Psyche and Mercury in Libra are in what we call a T-square. They are opposite Eris, the goddess of chaos. One of the phases of transformation or of growth of any kind, is chaos, discord. And this shows up in, today, my colleague, Jen Miller, posted a tarot reading with the new tarot deck she acquired. And what the reading said, essentially, was you know, our work in the world as human beings has to do with disconnecting from parental expectations, the rules, what they raised us to be, and becoming our own person, which involves a death of the old. And it involves internal chaos and can create chaos in families, especially if the people in question are still alive. So one of the things, I have said this before, as women on the path of dismantling patriarchy and establishing the partnership community society, we want to be comfortable, at ease, willing to walk in chaos, in our power. And patriarchy, some of the big voices of chaos, of patriarchy right now, They do two things. They stir up chaos in their own way that is destructive chaos. And they decry feminine creative chaos, birthing chaos, as dangerous. So as we are creating chaos, know that we will be called dangerous. And that in itself can be scary. So there's an opposition. Mercury and Psyche are calling to that chaos across the sky and saying, I dare you. I dare you to show up for the dark goddess. I dare you to allow the creative mess to happen. And both of these points, Mercury, Psyche, and Eris, are square. Two potent feminine energies that are incredibly dissimilar. And therefore, they work together very well. Black Moon Lilith. The goddess disowned, the goddess demonized, and in the figure of Black Moon Lilith, the goddess before patriarchy, who is the creator, who takes the void of nothing and through the chaos of her own womb, brings it into form. She represents the pure, fertile, creative energy of the feminine, without which anything can exist, without which anything can exist. Okay. And with her is Pallas Athene. And Pallas Athene is the cerebral intellectual goddess. She is all about working with the mind to solve the problem. She has a masculine energetic imprint on her, which is very valuable for women to know how to work with inside of ourselves. So working with our minds, working with strategy. How can we get this done? And recognizing too that feminine strategy might have some very different steps and methods than a masculine oriented strategy. So representing intellectual strength. And one of the things that I've become aware of this fall, especially, in working with women, in witnessing women, recognizing how many women are beset by anxiety. And it's something that I've been challenged to understand, because blessedly, my relationship with anxiety is very small. I won't say that I've never experienced it or I have none, but it is not kind of a mental health challenge that I work with. I have different ones, believe me, but in beginning to develop a heart of compassion and an understanding of what people go through with anxiety and how many of these people are women and how many of the women grew up with narcissistic, mentally ill or dysfunctional mothers especially, which gave them or generated anxiety for some reason. I can't go much deeper, and you can also argue with me. I am simply sharing an observation and an insight that definitely requires further study, further observation, and I'm not here to diagnose anything. I am simply pointing out, well, what does anxiety do? The effect of anxiety means that, well, it can have all kinds of levels of severity, but we'll call it a functional level, its dysfunction is self-doubt, not being able to trust oneself, not feeling confident in the decisions that one needs to make as an adult on a regular basis. Feeling overwhelmed by the problems life throws at us instead of feeling like I have the capacity, the mental energy and confidence to solve this problem, to get the help I need, to do the research and find the answers, to listen to my intuition along with my mind and find the answers. And so I say all this because that is the gift of Pallas Athene. That intellectual and mental strength that she represents allows us to sit with the raw divine feminine power of Lilith and create with it. Use that to solve the problems, to look at the psyche story and Mercury, and to look at Eris and her chaos and walk through it, come up with a solution. And when it comes to the eclipse in Scorpio, to say, I know I have to make a deep dive here. And I know I can do it. And I will find answers when I go down. So as always, there's more happening in this chart. We have the dark goddess in Pluto. We have Mars and Vesta. We have Nessus, the North Node, and Albion. I'm going to say their names and drop their energies into the circle and know that they are at work here in this container that we are creating one way or another. And I invite you again to join me this afternoon for the eclipse ritual, where I will create a container for you to go down, and we will see how many of these divine entities show up with us. And if you're not available at 4 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon, there will be a recording. You can tap in at your convenience. It will still be incredibly effective anytime this week. Better in the next 48 hours, still working in the next 108 hours. So watch for that link down below, and I look forward to seeing you. Whether you join me or not, I wish you a blessed full moon. Take extra care with how you walk in the world these next couple of days. What you can cancel, cancel. What time you can spend in the dark and the quiet with your journal, do that. Many blessings.